But for the most part, I will say that the overall content strategy or the overall strategy for this is consistency and also having what I call 2 lead injection events per year. And so you can attract the onesies and twosies with your lead magnet by appearing on other people's podcasts and so on. But to overcome the attrition in your email list and connect with those people more deeply, you need to have a list injection event.
You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 416. And today, let's look at some lead generation strategies that work for high level entrepreneurs. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, business leaders and ripple makers. It's your host, Melanie Benson, Authority Amplifier to impact-driven entrepreneurs ready to increase the reach of their work in the world. And today I've got an amazing guest. We're talking about lead generation strategies that work for coaches who are ready to go beyond like that first 6 figures into 7 figures. But even if you're newer, tune in, listen to what's working. Sometimes it's so powerful to skip ahead and do those next level strategies now. Before I introduce you to my guest today, I want to go back to a tried and true proven technique that I find works no matter what's going on in your business, and that is being a guest on other people's shows and podcasts. But the way most people are doing it is leaving a lot to be desired. They're leaving client leads behind. They're leaving opportunity behind. They're keeping their collaborations dormant. And I specialize in helping people monetize their visibility strategies and turn it into another 6 or 7 figures a year in new business. So I want you to go and get my 17 common mistakes that guest experts make that cost them the lead and the client, so that as you go into your next 12 months of visibility, you're going in eyes wide open with a strategy that performs well. And you're leaving behind some common mistakes that even sophisticated speakers and people who've been on stages all over the world make when they go to the podcast to be interviewed. So if you head to melaniebenson.com/scorecard, you can download it. It's my gift to you. Go through it, self-assess. And if you find that one or more of those areas are weak for you and you want to jumpstart your monetization of visibility right now, go check out my VIP intensives. I've got 1 or 2 left by the time this airs. Okay, and I'll guide you through that. Or you can head over to melaniebenson.com/coaching. All right, enough about me. Let's bring our guest on today. Welcome back, Amplifiers. Now, if you've been hearing a lot about high ticket offers and like high value clients, coaches that are really maybe on the leading edge of what they're charging, then you might be wondering, what is it they're doing to attract those kinds of clients? Well, we have a guest today who you're going to love because she's going to talk to us about how high level lead generation strategies work for these kinds of offers. Let me introduce you to this amazing human named Jennie Wright. She is an expert in email list growth and lead generation with over a decade of experience helping business owners achieve their marketing goals. She's the creator of the list injection method, a system that uses inbound attraction and permission marketing to help clients and audiences generate leads. She's got a track record of building over 375 lists. She has a deep understanding of the essential steps to creating events that not only attract ready buyers, and I want you to really hear that word, ready buyers, but also build trust and engagement with audiences. Jennie's on a mission to empower business owners with intelligent and authentic marketing, lead generation, and business growth strategies that drive bottom line results. Jennie, thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Oh, Melanie, I've been dying to have this conversation, and we've had to put it off a couple times, scheduling and things like that. And we're finally here. We finally get to do it.
Yes, we do. We had such an amazing conversation when we got to know each other. I was very, very honored to be a guest on your show called Acquire. Yes, we're way overdue and we're going to dig in right away. So let's first define what you mean by an elite coach, because I want people to recognize themselves in it or potentially like where they're aspiring to grow their coaching business too.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of an elite coach as somebody who's dealing with either a high income client or a high value client, somebody who is, having those $25,000 masterminds or above and is working with that select group of people. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean monetarily it has to be that high. I really think that it depends also on what you're teaching. So, it could be that you're teaching something really above that fundamental side. You're really talking about those specific niched in topics that create or elevate the success in somebody's business. You're really creating that growth factor that people really need to go from like a multi-six to a seven-figure business. Something along those lines.
Mm, okay, that's really clarifying. Thank you. Now, I'm also super interested to hear how you would define, or maybe like what are some of the characteristics that would identify a high quality lead for that type of coaching model?
Mm, okay, that one's fun. So that one always makes, I love that question. The people that would fall into that category are people who've been around the block a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to have been 10 years in the business. You may have achieved that level of around the blockness in 2 years. It depends on what you've done. And so you might still, at 10 years in, feel like you're a noob in certain areas of growth. And so the right person for that category is somebody who has potentially an established team, is selling products that have a like a higher value or volume, right? So online courses and products that are either reaching like a bigger number or at a bigger value. And so those people understand lead gen, they understand processes, they understand what the level of detail you would have to go in to sell to these people, to help these people. They're willing to do the work. And they're not, I wouldn't say they're not noobs when it comes to understanding that to get to this kind of level, they have to do the thing that's going to get them there. And they're really ready to do it. They've gone through all the mental stuff, and there's also like a mental aspect where people have done the work and they understand where they have to be mentally to be able to do some of these things, because as you know, you were just telling me you were at an event. They are mentally charging. They either help charge you up or they actually decrease your battery depending on what you're doing and the kind of person you are. And you have to do the mental work around that to accept everything that you learned and what you can put into it and what you can take out of it. That's
Mm,
the kind of client that I'm talking about.
yeah. So I know those people. I mean, I think I'm probably one of those people, but I also can recognize them and spot them, and I think what I'm hearing you say is that they're also recognizing that this is not a magic pill, that
No.
we're investing emotionally, energetically, and financially in a new level of success. Is that
Yes.
really, yeah?
Yes.
And
Thank you
and
for
so
taking my jumbledness and making it into something perfect.
yeah, well, I mean, that's why I do messaging. And
Mhm.
I think what you said was perfect. And if we were just to bottom line it, I think that's really what we're looking for is people who are capable and willing of investing and they're not
Mhm.
wishing things to be easier and simplified. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be hard. Let me just scratch that. What I'm saying is that we recognize there's some effort involved to get where we want to go next.
I always look at it as there's just more cogs and wheels. It's not harder, it's not
Mm.
more difficult. There's just more processes or automation or staff or quantity of things that we have to do to achieve those kinds of results. The type of online event you would run to get your first 500 leads is same but completely different than the kind of online event you would run to get your 50th lead, right? Similar events, just more cogs and wheels.
I love that definition so much. And I think that's why sometimes I've had conversations with people who are maybe at a newer stage and they look at me like a deer in the headlights when I tell them the steps we're taking to attract our client base. And they're like, whoa, that's a lot. But it's not. It's just we're at a different stage of the evolution. And I really resonate with that.
Yeah.
So I got the $1 million question for you. And as you're listening in, I'm very curious if you resonate with this, because I think a lot of us who have always attracted higher value, higher, more elite client base, if you have seen what I'm seeing, and that is the way we're going to attract them is changing in our current marketplace.
Yeah, it really is.
So
And go ahead.
what are you seeing is working right now that may not have been what we needed to put our attention on in the past?
That's a really good question. I think a couple of years ago, we would have seen more of a generalized mastermind, like we're going to fix this, this, the A to Z of your problems. And what I'm seeing now is very niched in style, either elite coaching, mastermind style, and so on, where it fixes one thing. It fixes the podcast, or it fixes the client onboarding, or it fixes the one thing, right? So we're not looking at trying to fix all the little things. We're laser focusing in on one thing that solves that particular problem. And a lot of the clients that I'm working with that are, elite coaches and attracting elite clients, that's where they've started to put their focus. The generalized mastermind isn't as attractive anymore because it's really you're really not getting a ton out of it. You actually have to wait, if you're at that level, you have to wait a couple of weeks to get something out of it instead of being able to laser focus in on the one thing that you really want to put attention to.
Hmm. Yeah, I would completely agree. So we're solving a specific problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like what is the lead magnet or the thing that pulls those people towards us? Because and so
Mm.
let's just say that the other elephant in the room is there's a lot of people that probably sound like us out there. You and I may be doing some similar things, but we do very different things when we get down into the work, right?
Yeah.
So, but to the general public, we might sound a lot alike. So, how do we create some kind of a tool or resource or a first step that pulls people towards us?
The resources and tools at this level are not PDF downloads.
Mm.
Okay. They're a different beast completely. They're more on the higher touch, personalized. So you're going to find that you're going to get invited to a small group of six on a Zoom, and you're going to get high touch support, or you're going to be invited to attend one day out of that person's high level mastermind to see how it works, right? Or you're going to get a component of that elite coaching. Getting a PDF download, that's not going to help you. That's what you do to get somebody who's actually and at that level, in my opinion, you're doing that to get somebody who's a service provider, right? So you're going to get that PDF download and then you go, yeah, that person's perfect to help me set up my CRM versus that elite side. Now, I'm not saying that the PDF download or the other lead magnets don't work, but I think that for the most part, we're seeing this sort of higher level, higher touch, and also uh, networking, and also, like, I mean, like just affiliate and referral marketing is at the top level here. This is the things that really make a difference at this particular level. And if you want to attract those people, the other thing that also works is being front and center. So appearing on panels, appearing on summits. People are watching those. You might think that summits and things like that are dead. They're absolutely not. People are watching them. And that's another way that you're attracting that high level client.
And podcast interviews, really.
100%.
Yeah. I
100%.
mean,
Yeah.
some of my highest value clients who stayed with me the longest heard me on a podcast.
Mhm.
So I think those are also that front and center that you're mentioning. Yes. So it's interesting as I'm listening to you talk, Jenny, as because I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, 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 yes. These are the same things we're seeing that are basically I think of it's like the more personalized approach to attracting someone and standing out to someone who is of that higher level. They're probably not going to take the time to go through a challenge, but they still have a problem they want solved. They still have a desire they want to achieve, and they're looking for the person who they resonate with and demonstrates their authority.
Absolutely. And we can't underestimate the value of YouTube. as a also a way or like a gateway to finding those ideal clients because we're using YouTube as a like a search feature at this point, and we're still finding that to be a great way. I mean, if I wanted to, how to increase the downloads on my podcast, if I put that into Google, I'm going to get a lot of YouTube videos. And if you look at those people, then you're going to find that those people have elite masterminds on how to increase the downloads for your podcast or get better guests or write a book or whatever. And so YouTube should not be discounted. And I think people need to make sure that they're putting the content out there on a regular basis that will help drive that traffic to maybe the masterclass that they can watch and download. Look at something like if you want to pull some names, look at somebody like Amy Porterfield, which everybody knows. And I've talked about her a lot over the years for the past decade, I'm sure. And one of the things that she does when she sells her big course, and she's not like, she's volume versus high income, uh, or elite coaching. And what she does is she has a masterclass that you can download. So she actually starts with a PDF, but then she goes to a masterclass, and then she goes into a whole series of other things. But she does send a lot of people to review this masterclass, and it is pre-recorded. And she has a whole series on that. So don't discount sending people to something where they can actually see you in action, like you said, because that is a thing that can really turn the tide.
She does really well with her webinars. And I've
She's got it
yeah,
down to a science at this point.
yeah.
Come on.
I've known her for years, and I was like, "Wow, she's very good at that."
Yeah.
Let's talk about webinars and the role of virtual events, and this is something I'm super hot about because I see a lot of people what's the word? I don't wanna say playing small because it's not really playing small, but it's almost like they're ducking out on the very thing that could move the needle for them right now.
Yes.
So, what would you say is the role that a webinar, a masterclass, a live virtual event, you don't even have to do it in person, plays in attracting, engaging, and maybe even pre-qualifying these leads so they're ready to buy?
It's essential. It should be part of your marketing strategy. It is a no-brainer. And for people who do play that piece of smallness or let their own head junk get in the way from them doing it, there's two ways I can tell them to do it. I can be the suck it up person, tell them to go and do it. Or I can play into the fact that they have that special message, right? So you and I do something that's somewhat similar for people. I do the same thing somewhat similar for a lot of people, but nobody teaches it like you do. You have that special approach from your years of work and client work and your own stuff, and you approach it completely different. So I would tell that person or tell people in general that nobody does it exactly like you, even though you might think you're in a space with a ton of people. And so you have that special message to share or that special way of doing it, and you're robbing people from that by not doing it. So just get over whatever it is. And I always find the best way to get over is just to get it done and just do it and move forward from that.
Messy progress. Like,
Yep,
don't worry about it
absolutely.
being perfect. There's a lot of stuff you're gonna figure out along the way, but be willing to lean into that, we in the industry call a conversion event. It's like we're
Mhm,
moving people into an opportunity to learn, to be exposed to an opportunity, and decide yes or no.
completely.
So I I am just fascinated by what people do to nurture the relationships they have with potential clients.
Hmm.
And everybody seems to be doing it a little bit differently, and there's so many different ways we can do it, and I think there's a lot to be said about choosing lead nurturing techniques that are A, aligned with your superpowers, but also work to move
Yeah.
people through, like, your buying process, whatever that is. Tell us a little bit about what you see happening there, and what do you recommend for your clients?
Mm. It really depends on the person. This is really a bespoke
Mm.
sort of strategy. It really depends on the person and, like you said, their little superpower that makes them so cool. And but for the most part, I will say that the overall content strategy or the overall strategy for this is consistency and also having what I call two lead injection events per year. And so you can attract the onesies and twosies with your lead magnet by appearing on other people's podcasts and so on. But to overcome the attrition in your email list and connect with those people, more deeply, you need to have a list injection event twice a year. Spring, fall, summer, winter, you pick whatever works for you. And then you can customize that to whatever is good for you. If it's a summit, if it's a bundle, if it's a challenge, if it's a masterclass, if it's a webinar series, whatever fits. And so I will say that the overall strategy that works in this space is consistency and then having those list injection events and then making opportunities for people to connect with you either through things like hot seats or showing up regularly on Facebook Lives or creating a private community and having people in that community and showing people how you support. All of those things build up a lot of credibility and put a lot of trust in that little bank account that you can then pull from when you're ready to make a sale.
Yeah, well said. Love that. Oh, I love the lens of what you see happening, and you're bringing that to us today. And I will also put a plug in for your podcast. Like, if you own a podcast, if you run a show of some kind, don't forget the value of nurturing the relationships you have with people in between those lead injection
Yes.
events. I just a quick insight to the people that joined Authority Accelerator the last time heard a podcast interview, or not interview, a podcast solo episode that I dropped that was so not exactly what I teach in the program, but so what they needed to hear about who I was as a mentor. It moved them into action and had them booking a call with me. And I was like, huh, what do you know? So I
I love
do.
your podcast. I love it. It's
Oh,
perfect that
thank
way.
you. And so you might know that this was the one about expanding your energetic capacity for more.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, okay. And so sometimes we don't really know what it is that works, but just keeping that continuity, as you said, the relationship going, talking to the different things that people are experiencing. Yeah, sometimes that's what keeps the glue in between the opportunities. And when you open the door, they'll be ready.
There is one thing I'd like to add that
Yes.
you sparked when you were talking, and is I look at looking or creating content that overcomes objections. So that podcast episode you just spoke about
Hmm.
overcame an objection, right? And it had people move through. So if they had a question in their head about, whether or not they should join, that particular episode overcame an objection for those people who were listening, and then they booked a call. And so we always know what the objections are. It's, it's time, it's money, it's all those kinds of things. And so if in the content that you create with consistency, you can overcome those and you repeat, because honestly, if you have a podcast with 300 episodes, nobody, or not many, people have gone back to listen 1 through 300. And so if you repeat some of the same content with a slightly different lens, title, and so on, then you're able to hit those people. And I do repeat a lot of the same themes, and a lot of people do, because there's a different way of looking at it or whatnot, but it also allows you to overcome those objections. Uh, which helps people get to that next level, book the call, you know, take the first step.
Yeah, that's a really great insight. And I really resisted doing that, by the way, repurposing the content, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I already covered that. And my podcast manager was like, Melanie, that was like 250 episodes ago. Nobody remembers it. I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, you're right. Thank you. I could talk to you for hours, and gosh, I feel like there's so many gems that you have to share. Do you have a first step if somebody's really resonating with this and they're thinking, man, Jennie, I know I need to go deeper into her work because this is really speaking to me. Where would be a good place for somebody to start?
Connect with me. I'm really easy to find, and just send me a DM. I'd love to connect with people that way. So that's one way. The other way is going to my website. If you still want to check out more to make sure I'm kind of the right fit, because, everybody's quite particular to who they would like to work with. Check out jennywright.com. Check out the Acquire podcast. Hear how I adapt or create strategy. I love to sort of create in the moment. So go and check those out. And then just make sure, if you want to, I'm on LinkedIn most of the time and also Instagram.
Yes, but don't you have a free resource you wanted to share?
I do, I do. And this is making sure that you know how to sell from your list build. And
Mm.
so we're going to put the link, because it's silly and long, in the show notes, I hear. But I'm going to show you how to be able to do that and how to be able to connect with people that are on your list, either coming in or been on there for a while, so that you can sort of have them self select into buckets, one of them being hot leads, so that you can sell to them.
I'm going to be going right over and downloading this as soon as we're done with our conversation today, because this is super compelling.
Thanks.
Which, by the way, my friends, you hear me talk about relevance marketing in at its best right here. Oh, Jennie, I love the wisdom you're bringing to our conversation today. And I know my Amplify community loves getting to know the person behind the wisdom, like a little bit about your journey. What would you say is the boldest thing you ever did that has amplified the success of your business?
I doubled down on niching in. So when I started, I was a VA and I was helping everybody with everything. And I had a conversation with my partner and I said, this is not working. I'm actually not growing. I'm going sideways. And so we came to the conclusion that it was time to niche in on one thing. And I chose summits. And I just completely went full in on summits. And I got notorious. I was known notoriously as the person who did summits. I've done over 400 of them at this point. And so nobody's done as many as me and all that kind of stuff. So I owned that space. And that helped me get really well known or notorious in that space. And it helped grow the business exponentially.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love the double niching. And some people are really afraid to do that. What
Completely,
was
because
the
you're worried that you're gonna, exclude people from your potential client list.
Yeah, and that might mean I lose cash flow or I might repel a client who's actually a good fit for me. It's like very
Mhm.
bold and brave to kind of double down on that. So that's a beautiful example. What is one thing you wish you would have done sooner? Because now you know, oh my gosh, this is going to be so impactful for me.
Mm. You can't see me, but I'm smiling, uh, because I wish I had listened to my own advice and taken my own medicine earlier. And that would have been to start growing my list exponentially earlier on, doing the things that I talk about now because I've learned my lesson through not doing them for a number of years and focusing in on the wrong things. And so now, because I'm all preachy about, growing your list, I wish I had done more of those things. And I wish I'd gotten out of my own way and been, hosted more of my own summits and been my own speaker and had my own podcast. I didn't have a
Mm.
podcast till 2019. I mean, late adopter. And I wish I had done it so much sooner, but I had all these hangups. I had all these hangups about people listening to my voice or whether or not they would like what I had to say or the content was useful. And then I was like, I'm not going to do YouTube or Facebook Live because nobody's going to want to look at this mug. But you just have to get over your stuff. And I wish I had done all of that years and years ago.
I ask you a follow-up question about this because
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware how many people say something just like how you used to feel.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, and just on behalf of any listener who's like, oh my God, Jennie, you are speaking to me right now. What's the one catalyst that got you to do this, if you're willing to share?
I am willing to share. Uh, and I'm gonna try not to laugh when I say this. The one catalyst was saying, screw it. Nobody gives a bleep about how I sound, look, or say as much as I do. And so I ended up, I had this course I was trying to sell, this online course, this like challenge, and nobody was signing up for it. I was sending emails and posting on social media, but I wasn't getting traction. And I needed this thing to work. I needed to prove that I could run this course. And so I did 53 Facebook Lives in 14 days. And that got me over the hump, right? I ended up closing enough people. I closed, the quota that I was looking for. It worked. And it also completely sort of inoculated me from my worries and wrong justifications of showing up online.
Yeah. So what I took out of that is you knew it worked for other people and the self-awareness of I got to be willing to do this if I want results. And
Exactly.
you got into action even if you were uncomfortable. So I want you
Completely.
taking notes, my friends, as you're listening in. If you've been resisting, if you've been holding yourself back from being more visible, you've been like, I'm scared to go call Melanie or now Jennie and get, coaching and guidance, get over yourself. Tough
Completely.
love here. It's not going to solve the problem by just doing more of what you're doing right now. You got to be willing to take some new action. So I'm so glad you brought that into the conversation. All right, friends, as you're listening in, Jennie has been a wealth of information. She's a badass. I love her. Like I am just so thrilled that our paths have crossed. And I know you're going to want to get her resource. So go check out the show notes. I'll make sure it's linked up there. And I want to hear from you. What was the big aha from today? Even if you're not focused on elite clients per se and high value, high volume in your work, like no matter where you're at, there was a gem in here for you today. I want to know what it was. Give us a little shout out on social media. Share this episode or just tag me in a post. Tag Jennie in a post. We want to know what your big takeaway was. So thank you, Jennie, so much for being here today.
Thank you, Melanie. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. We're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.